Hi everyone, my name is Mia Shafe and I visited Central Nebraska Orthopedics in Grand Island. I interviewed Mrs. Susan Ziska, one of the coders for the facility. I received a tour of their facilities, and when I first arrived, and basically it was arranged in like a square layout. The outside section of the square was where all of the doctors' offices were located, as well as the waiting room and reception area. The MRI room, durable medical equipment room, and exam rooms were also in the outside of the square. This is also where the area was that had the offices for the transcriptionists, the auditing and insurance people, the file room, and the coders. The middle of the square was where they did the x-ray rooms and such. And I really liked that the HIMSS workers were all kind of in the same area. They had like their own little sectioned off place to go, and so if they had any questions or anything like that from the rest of the HIMSS workers, they could all just kind of contact each other in a little area. They had to walk all the way across the facility to access that information, so that was really cool how they did that. I also really appreciated that it's a smaller facility. I felt a sense of community throughout my tour because every doctor or employee that we saw while I was receiving the tour all knew Susan, and they were all really friendly to me. Just a side note for everyone, Susan's actually my aunt, and so she had been telling her coworkers all about me this summer while I lived with them in Grand Island. So they all knew who I was before I even knew them, which is kind of funny. So they're like, "Oh, I'm so excited to meet you." But I also feel that with a smaller staff, they have like a less a smaller chance of making errors that could happen in the bigger staff facilities, such as a hospital. They had a great communication between all of them, and you could tell that they were all really close staff because they didn't have a problem just walking in and asking a question to whomever could answer that question. I mean, multiple times while we were talking and getting our tour, Susan was asked about things, or she even asked a couple of the ladies about some things, which was really cool. They are also specialty clinics, and I want to work in one of those someday, so they code only for the orthopedics. Unfortunately, the fact that they are a smaller facility is also kind of a negative. I feel that due to their small size, they don't have very many job opportunities open, as most of the employees there have been there for 5 or more years. That was really the only negative that I observed during my tour. Otherwise, the facilities were great. Everybody was really nice, really helpful. I liked the feeling, the atmosphere was great. On to the question part of this assignment. I answered the majority of these questions in favor of the coding field because that is what my program of studies in. This is really where my dislikes and my likes came in. To start with, like, the technology section, they used a software program called NextGen, and I learned that they just integrated it in May of this year. Susan mentioned that it was difficult to make the transition to this new software because they had used this software before it for so long, and the training wasn't as thorough as it probably should have been. She said a lot of it was on-the-job learning. They didn't teach them and integrate it while they were working. They just kind of threw it all at them, and then they had to go find out for themselves. So she said that was kind of difficult. I wasn't really surprised by this because I think of what a lot of you do in the HIMSS program is kind of on the job. You kind of learn to settle into your rhythm of things while also integrating the rules and guidelines of certain things. So I think you kind of have to be flexible to new and changing things. The major thing that really caught my attention that I was really surprised about was that the Central Nebraska Orthopedics has not made the transition to the EHR yet, and they're not going to make that until May of 2014. They do start their training in February, however, they aren't integrating it until May, so they're kind of behind the times, I feel like, a little bit, but since they're a smaller facility, I don't know that that really affects them a whole lot. They do use EPM for the coding, and the input devices that they use consist of recorders for the transcriptionists, computer systems and scanners for insurance purposes, and like they'll scan insurance cards and such, and it brings it up on their computer, so they have it all right there for them. To the job section, the qualifications that they want for their employees are not specific really at all, looking at it from the coding position. They do require you to have a high school diploma, but other than that, they will basically train you on the job to do the coding. They would prefer that you have some kind of healthcare experience, but it's not mandatory. Obviously, the MAs, the medical assistants, and the radiologists must have so many credits for their continuing education every year they don't have a required certification in the coding department. So that was kind of interesting. I don't know why exactly, but I think I would feel better if there were more certified coders there. There's also no open job positions right now, but there might possibly be in May. On average, Central Nebraska Orthopedics see between 70 and 90 patients daily, and the majority of them are all insured. They have not yet experienced an impact from Obamacare, but they're anticipating them after evaluations after the first of the year, or they're really going to feel an impact, they feel. Central Nebraska Orthopedics use paper-based health records, but some of their work is done on the computer through Word documents, mainly for lookup purposes. They just have a drawer in the coding room that has all their little files set up, and I'm not going to delve into that because that would be a HIPAA violation, but they have just all their information in file cabinets. They have a filing room as well, and there's ladies that work in the filing room and just file it all away paper-based wise. They plan on starting an EHR training in February of 2014, and they will go live in May of 2014. Even though they don't use EHRs, they do perform backups for their EPMs every day. And in order to maintain confidentiality and ensure the release of information only to necessary individuals, they require that the patient must sign a HIPAA policy, and then they can include the names of the family members or persons allowed to receive this information. Central Nebraska Orthopedics offers a number of jobs, including coding, transcriptionist, who also handle the credentialing, receptionist, appointment and scheduling personnel, which would be called the switchboard, filing, medical assistants, insurance personnel, radiologists, and doctors. 2 employees perform the coding function in this office, but they're not credentialed. Neither of them have their certificates or anything like that. Most of their training was on the job. However, they did both have to take medical terminology and attend some coding seminars. The coders also handle the payments and some insurance billing, as well as statements, and they sometimes fill in for receptionists and scheduling ladies. To expand on the coding field, the coding process that is used in this office includes mainly fee and service tickets. On the service and fee tickets, the physicians will mark their charges and services performed, and take it to a designated file for each coder. These coders then match the diagnosis with the exam file using the dictation as documentation. This process is also used for surgeries, but the doctors code their own surgeries. The coders also use written records that must meet they use the written records from the hospital or hospital documentations for additional insurance information or personal information that they may not have received from the doctor. The standards that the coders must meet include understanding medical terminology, as well as following the AMA coding guidelines and ICD-9, which will soon be converted to ICD-10. This office uses NextGen for their software, as well as an ICD-9, ICD-10 comparison utility tool to convert their ICD-9 codes to their ICD-10 codes. Mrs. Ziska also mentioned that this tool is very helpful for beginning to learn the new ICD-10 codes, but this office does not have a written coding policy. The methods that are used to communicate with the physicians regarding medical record documentation deficits or inconsistencies include leaving the charge ticket or the document that needs to be amended on the desk of the physician, or they'll communicate with their medical assistants, who will make note of the error on the document for the physician to see and then to correct. Central Nebraska Orthopedics has not made the upgrade to ICD-10 yet, but they plan on making the transition after the first of the year. They use CCCI Alpha 2 to check for edits in their documents, along with their NextGen program for encoding. Finally, COPIC is used for outside consulting to review charts, and COPIC is a doctor's malpractice insurance company that comes in every year. Periodically, different insurance companies will come in also and do audits. And additionally, an internal audit review, they are performed every 6 months. So typically, 25 charts will be pulled randomly and used to match documentation to the services that were performed, including the diagnosis, level of E&M, and any other service provided for that particular date of service, just to make sure there were no discrepancies or anything like that. In conclusion, I think that this was a really great learning experience. It really helped me to decide what to look for in a coding job, as well as in a facility for a future job. I really liked that their facilities were small, but the biggest question that remained in my mind after this visit was, why don't they require their coders to be certified? And if you were certified, would you be paid more because of that certification? I don't believe that I would want to work in this particular facility, and due to my aunt working there, I would not be allowed because it's a conflict of interest kind of thing. However, I do believe that I would like to work in a facility that's similar to this. I feel like a specialty clinic would be an interesting place to work, and there would be fewer errors because you're only dealing with a specified part of the body. I feel as though I learned a lot, and this assignment made me feel excited to finish my schooling and get out into the coding world.